I'm not kind. I'm just tempting you. I never give anything without expecting something in return. I always get paid.
Well, if you think I'll marry you just pay for the bonnet, I won't.
Don't flatter yourself. I'm not a marrying man.
What Lonzo Thinks is a wide-ranging, free-flowing discussion where I offer my unsolicited views on everything from music, movies, politics, sports, religion, pop culture, you name it. If it's happening, I'm talking about it. My thoughts are unsolicited, but if you're listening, I guess you were solicited. All right, and I have a special guest today, Felicia Kaysen. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Right on, right on. Thank you for joining me. I do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Before I even get started, just on a scale of 1 to 10, how tired of you of people saying bye, Felicia?
Pretty damn tired. But you just kind of have to roll with it.
Yeah, I know that's right. Some things get just kind of caught up in pop culture, and you can't get away from it. So
Absolutely.
So people that are out there listening, if you see Felicia, don't say bye, Felicia. Just say so long or something. See you later.
I get pretty damn tired of going places.
I hear you on that. All right, so you ready to do this thing, girl?
I'm ready.
All right. Now, about a year and a half ago, when I first started doing my show, one of the first segments or the first topics that I tackled was the conundrum of Gone with the Wind. And for anybody listening out there, if you haven't seen that show, check it out and come back and hit me up. It's the conundrum of Gone with the Wind. And in that show, I discussed my inner conflict because Gone with the Wind is probably my favorite movie of all time. And obviously, I'm a black man. I live in the South. And if anyone knows anything about Gone with the Wind, it was set during the Civil War, slavery, things of that nature. So I had this inner conflict. So, anyways, I go through phases where I binge watch Gone with the Wind. And what I mean by binge watch, I'll watch it over and over and over again. So I'm in the middle of a binge. So I figured, I still need to kind of come to grips with my dilemma. And what better way to tackle it than to do a little psychoanalysis with you, Felicia, since you're also a fan of Gone with the Wind. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I also have some of the same conundrums that you have.
Awesome. So I think this will be a lively conversation. So we're just going to dive right into it. So I'm going to start off and just asking you, how old were you when you saw Gone with the Wind for the first time? Or just tell me about the experience.
I was 5 or 6 years old when I watched it for the first time with my grandmother. And I remember she let me stay up and watch it. It was really late. And, it's a 4-hour movie, give or take. And, I didn't really understand the politics of it at the time and the backstory of it. I just remember getting to stay up late and watch a movie, and I remember seeing all the beautiful gowns and the dancing and the music, and I fell in love with the movie. And it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I started to understand, the gist of the movie. But it's always been one of my favorite movies, and it's now my favorite movie. But now that I've been able to watch it at least 200 times, I do have some inner conflict with it.
Okay, so I guess go ahead and explain your conflict.
Well, for one, I think its presentation of slavery is appalling. But at its core, it's much less about politics than it is about the human heart. However, Hattie McDaniel, as you know, who plays Mamie, won an Oscar for her performance, but she couldn't even attend the Oscars due to segregation laws at the time to accept her award. She was at a nightclub and had to be presented her award there. And I just think that right there speaks for itself. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It just is awful. And when she died, actually, her body was refused from a segregated cemetery and her statue was missing. And in her lifetime, she played 74 different maid roles. What does that speak for our society? What does that say?
Wow. Okay. You know what? I didn't even know that. So you learn something new every day. So I did not know that she plays 74 maid roles.
74 different roles, and she played a maid in every single one of them. Yep.
Well, obviously, that's what they call typecasting. And
Yep.
and obviously in the 1930s, 40s, if you're black in the movies, there's not a whole lot of roles for you other than some, roles of
Yep.
servitude and and things of that nature. So I get it. I mean, I guess there's two school of thoughts when you think about it. A, it's terrible that she couldn't play anything other than a maid. But on the other hand, she was working. She was making loot. So she
Right.
was she was at least being able to ply her craft, her trade, and not actually be a maid, if that makes any sense.
Yes, and Time Magazine did call her one of the high. She was highly regarded as one of the most not black or white or purple or green. One of the most highly regarded actresses of her time. So
Yes.
that's something to be said too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And for the people out there listening, if you haven't seen Gone with the Wind, I guess we need to owe them a little bit of a synopsis in regards to what the movie is about. So if you're from the planet Mars and you never heard of Gone with the Wind, we're going to run it down for you real quick before we get deeper into our conversation. So if you are listening for the first time, don't know what the movies are about, you'll have some sort of context to put it within. All right. So Gone with the Wind is, as you said, is set during the Civil War, slavery, but it's actually, like I said, it's about the heart. It's a love story, and it focuses on the lead characters, of course, Scarlett O'Hara, who is a young, vivacious, bratty, spoiled Southern belle. I guess the best way you can put it. And she's in love with Ashley Wilkes, who is a neighbor of hers. So I guess someone that she's grown up with. She's in love with him. She thinks that he's in love with her. And her world basically falls apart when she finds out that Ashley is not going to marry her, but he's going to marry his cousin Melanie from Atlanta. So I'm going to let you pick it up from there if you want to.
Yeah, she thinks she's in love with him. Let's go back. She thinks she's in love with him, but she really isn't. But she doesn't realize this until years later. It's pretty much puppy love. But Red Butler enters the scene, who is this older gentleman who is immediately smitten with her, and he marries her. And this is after she marries two times before. She marries who?
Charles
marries
Hamilton.
Her sister's husband, Mr.
Yeah.
Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
She marries two of her sister's beaux.
Yes.
No, she marries Ashley Wilkes' sister's beau, and then marries one of her sister's beaux.
Right.
And then she marries Red Butler, who's her third husband. And she doesn't realize until it's much too late that she's actually been in love with him the whole time, and that she never really loved Ashley. She just thought she did. But that's pretty much what. And during this whole time, through all of these marriages, the war's going on, the Civil War, Atlanta's being destroyed by Sherman. She's having to fight for food. She's taking care of her family. She's planting crops, working. She goes from a rich family, never having to lift a finger, having servants taking care of her, to having to actually work in the fields and having everything crumble down around her until, basically that's the gist of the story. And she basically grows up, but it's not until the end of the movie, and she grows up too late and realizes a little too late what her heart really wants. But yeah, that's the gist of the story.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the Scarlett O'Hara character, she is one of my favorite characters in the film. I mean, in the performance, she's portrayed by a British actress by the name of Vivian Leigh. And in my opinion, it is, to this day, one of the greatest lead female performances ever put to film. I think her performance as Scarlett is absolutely perfect. If no one told you that she was a Southern belle, you never would know. The way she embodies the character, she just, in my opinion, she immerses herself in the role, and she absolutely, positively dominates the screen when she's on it. So, and in my opinion, thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong here. In my opinion, because the description that you give of her is perfect. However, in my opinion, I think that she is a very strong character. As far as, like you said, she's a spoiled brat at the beginning, and she's kind of thrust into the situation where she has to fend for herself. And she does, it's like she has this inner fire inside of her where she refuses to, to be destroyed by what's going on around her, and she fights through it, and she finds that inner reserve to basically fall into poverty and build her way back up. Now she does some things that I guess some people call nowadays bitchy, gold digging, but she did what she had to do in order to survive. So am I off base here, or are we on the same track?
No, you called it exactly what it is, and unfortunately, that's just the way it was back then. And today, even by today's standards, some people still have to do what they have to do to survive. That's just the way the world's always been, and the way the world's always going to be. I mean, as a woman, even by today's standards, sometimes you have to do what you have to do to survive, and she did what she had to do for her family to survive. Her dad had lost his mind. He was of no good. Her mother was dead. She had become the head of the household. She had to take care of them. Melanie's husband was off to war. He could have been dead for all they knew. They had no idea where he was at, Ashley. She was taking care of Melanie, the baby, her sisters, her loony father. She had to do what she had to do.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, she had a great inner strength and fire. I mean, look at how she killed that Yankee soldier that was going to rape her, and she had quit thinking, or Melanie Buzz, to bury the body and get rid of the evidence. I mean, most women wouldn't have even thought of doing that. But she was quit thinking and on her feet. Yeah,
absolutely. And I like the way that the character was portrayed. I never read the book, so I'm assuming that the book portrayed the character in the same light. Now, one of the things that I heard about the book is that in the book, Scarlett wasn't very attractive. She was kind of homely. But of course, in the movie, Vivian Leigh, she's stunning. I mean, the guys are just falling all over her. All the guys in the county wanted her except for Ashley, And
correct.
And I mean, it's kind of funny because if you juxtapose that against today's society, I mean, there's no way Ashley's not going to smash that. No way. I mean, he might not want to be with her, but he would have smashed it. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's not how the times were back then. And of course, Ashley's family, it was always tradition for them to marry their cousins. They wanted to keep the blood bond pure.
True. Very true. Very true. So when you juxtapose, like I said, against today's society and everything, and you watch the film, you've never seen it before, and you watch it through today's prism, you're like, there's no way that stuff like this would actually happen in today's society. But
absolutely not.
Yeah, but you can kind of understand if you know a little bit about the South back during that time. I definitely get it. Now, let's talk about Rhett a little bit. Rhett Butler. Okay, he's a dashing gentleman from Charleston, South Carolina. He's high-bred. He's from an affluent family. He's a bit of an outcast, so he's a kind of a rogue or a scoundrel. He flunked out of West Point. And and I think one of the characters said he wasn't received by any of the families in the South, so he was basically the black sheep of his family. But beside all that, Rhett is extremely wealthy. I think he's a smuggler or importer. He does whatever he does. He made a lot of money doing it. Did it ever say exactly what it was that he did for a living?
He smuggled a lot of. He smuggled whiskey, he smuggled firearms, he smuggled whatever he could. He was a gun runner.
Right, and during the war, I guess that was his part. That was his thing during the war. He was making money, or everybody else was off dying. And I think he says that before the war even begins, he said, "I'm not going to fight, and you guys, there's no way you can beat the North. They're more organized, and all you guys, you're fighting on emotion." And the North has infrastructure, and he took advantage of that.
Charles Hamilton, who Scarlett O'Hara married first, got very upset at that remark.
Absolutely, yeah, he did, and I guess it's ironic he winds up marrying, like you said, he winds up marrying Scarlett, who actually Scarlett agrees to marry Charles because she sees Ashley is marrying Melanie.
Melanie.
So she basically she ain't studying Charles, but she marries him out of spite.
Pretty much.
And luckily for her, Charles dies of pneumonia a few weeks later.
Yeah.
That was a stroke of luck for her. So of course, the Rhett Butler character is played by Clark Gable, who is one of the iconic movie stars of that era, probably one of the greatest movie stars ever. And we'll talk about
He embodied the gentleman role.
Yes, he did.
Embodied the gentleman role.
Yes, he did. He was very smooth, suave, debonair. And another thing, he was very compassionate. He was very willing to be a gentleman and help these people during the war, when obviously he was kind of thrust into a position where he had to kind of look after Melanie and look after Scarlett and be a father figure, and maybe take Ashley's role a little bit as far as helping these women along. And he did take on that responsibility. So
he tickled me with Mamie and her red petticoat.
Yeah.
Her red silk petticoat.
Yeah.
Lordy, Mr. Red, you so bad.
Yeah. He brought that to you. He got her that from New Orleans, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, when they're on their honeymoon. So
Yeah.
So now let's talk a little bit about the slavery in the film. Now, once again, if you're listening out there, if you've checked out my show, The Conundrum of Going with the Wind, I'm gonna be a little redundant here, but I gotta point this out. Once again, I keep in mind I'm black, okay, and I'm a very proud black man. And the thing I probably hate more than anything else in this world is racism. But at the same time, like I said before, Gone with the Wind is my favorite film. Now, one of the things that I noticed even as a child is that, in this film, not once did you ever hear the word nigger. Not once. They call them darkies, they call them inferiors, but they never called them nigger. Okay, which I thought was kind of strange. And another thing is that the depiction of slavery in this film, it really, it will make you think that slavery wasn't that bad. You never see anyone get whipped or lynched or really treated in a bad way. And the slaves at Tara.
Except for when they were chained up in the mill, that was white and black.
Yeah, that's
chained
true.
Up in the mill.
That's true.
Yeah.
And so other than that one scene, I think one other scene, the scene where she slaps Prissy when she says she don't know nothing about birthing no babies. That was really the only time that that the slaves were maybe abused or something like that. And if I'm not mistaken, probably the strongest character who gets the most respect in the film is Mamie. Obviously, back in the old days, the mammy raised the children, raised the white children. They even nursed them. They were more of a mother to the white children than the own parents were. So you can tell that that's the kind of bond that she and Scarlett have, because the way she talks at Scarlett, she talks at her like a black mom would talk to their child. And
correct. And she was the only one that could get her to listen.
Exactly. And Scarlett loved her. Scarlett respected her. So did Rhett. So, I mean, all the characters loved and respected Mamie throughout the film. She was never disrespected by anyone. And also, you had other characters. Of course, you had Prissy, whom we'll talk about in a little bit. You had Big Sam.
Big Sam.
Yeah, and Pork. And like I said, Pork was the what I guess they call the house slave. He was kind of slow and dim with it, but at the same time, he was he was not treated badly. Really, like I say, he did what he had to do, but the characters obviously, loved and respected him. So if you watch the film, the depiction of slavery really paints a different picture. And how does that make you feel?
Well, what about, I don't know, I think the way that they depicted it was not the way it really was back then. I think that they like to glorify it, like they wanted to kind of put a nice bow on it, and that's not the way that it really was back then. Again, like when I referenced about Hattie McDaniel, she was the first African American to win an Oscar. However, she wasn't even allowed to attend the awards due to segregation. So what does that say? That tells you right then and there was a problem. The way that they depicted it in the movie was, especially back in the 1800s during the Civil War, was not how it was at all. And even in 1939, actually it was in 1940, when the Oscars, it was the following year because the movie came out in 39, it was 1940 when the Oscars, when Hattie McDaniel won, she couldn't even attend it. So to me, that was infuriating. I mean, I wasn't even alive then, but to read about it, it's infuriating. And in the very first part of the movie, if you remember, you may not remember this line, but Scarlett O'Hara's father, Gerald, said, "We'll keep our slaves with or without their approval." He was referring to the Yankees at the beginning of the war, and then he refers to them as darkies.
Yes.
To me, that line right there says a whole lot. Do you remember him saying that line?
Yeah, I do. That was at the beginning when they are having the big meeting at 12 Oaks.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And to me that just spoke to me. It took me years to actually catch that line and to actually understand it when I was much older. And like I said, and then the whole 40 acres and a mule, that line always aggravated me a little bit about the movie. And yes, they did treat, especially Scarlett and Rhett, they all treated them with respect and everything. But let's face the truth, that's not how they were treated back then at all.
Oh,
and to me, I think that they wanted to put a big bow on it and present it with, let's pretend that they were all treated nicely and that they had a choice. It wasn't that way, and I know why Hollywood had to present it that way, and I'm glad that it was done with a little bit of respect, but I also felt like it was disrespectful to represent it in a way that it wasn't. So that's why I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, and I just think that it really was unforgivingly racist, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously they watered it down as best they could, and they tried to paint a better picture of the South than was reality, because the slave owners were depicted as men of honor, and all the men were gallant and gentlemen, Southern gentlemen. And the women, everyone had manners, and they really treated each other with respect, and that respect filtered over with the slaves as well. But like I said, we know it wasn't like that. We know there was a lot of carnage going on, rape and murder and all this kind of stuff, and whipping, and the slaves trying to get away every chance they get, tried to run away every chance they had. I mean, so slaves were never happy in their lives as being slaves. I mean, who would? I mean, so.
Exactly.
So every time a slave had an opportunity to get away, they tried to get away. And that's how it really was. Because you remember there's a scene after the war where Big Sam saves Scarlett when she drives through Shantytown. Right.
Yep.
And in Sam's reward for saving her life, they send his ass back to Tara. So. Yeah, so that just kind of tells you, even though he was free, he wasn't really free, even after the Civil War. And once again, Mamie stays with her the whole time. So Mamie never got her freedom. Neither did Pork, because Pork was still there. Yeah, and the Pork character, he was kind of dim-witted and everything, but still, even though they played him as slow and dim-witted, the character just didn't feel disrespected to me. So I think. Overall, the depiction of slavery in this film, it didn't take away from it doesn't alienate me as a black person to watch the film, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes sense. Now, wasn't he the one that Scarlett gave her dad's pocket watch to?
Yes, that's Pork. Uh-huh.
Okay.
And so obviously it shows the amount of love and respect that Scarlett had for Pork, because she gave him, a prized possession, her daddy's watch, So, and the producer of the film, his name is David Selznick. He was a liberal, and he hated racism. So, as a producer of the film, he made it a point to try to depict the slaves in as good a light as possible. I think in some ways that kind of worked against them, because it gives people cause to pause. because it's not a true depiction of slavery. But I get it. He didn't want, because I think it would have taken away from the film if you're seeing slaves getting, beaten, whipped, and chained and that kind of stuff. It does. It makes it about something else. When it's in the essence, the heart of the story is all about this romance or this love triangle between Ashley, Scarlett, and Rhett Butler, in my opinion. So I'm okay with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
How about we touch a little bit about the costumes and the production design?
Yeah, go ahead. Do your
Because
thing.
back in 1939, there was no CGI. There were no computers, so there was no computer graphic. And most of the production design was hand-painted backdrops that they had to combine with live-action shots. To me, the production design was beautiful. I mean, for that time, that stuff that they had to work with, to me, was amazing. A lot of it was hand-painted canvases, and it was beautiful. And the costumes, my God, the red harlot dress, as I call it, that he made her wear to Ashley's birthday party, and the green gown that Mammy made from curtains, and her barbecue dress. I mean, those were just gorgeous pieces. What's your take on it?
Oh, I agree, and I've said this before. It's one of the most beautifully shot films I've ever seen in my life. It is. It is absolutely gorgeous to look at, and to watch it. Even today, even though it wasn't filmed in HD, so to speak. To watch it, I mean, it's breathtaking, and you're absolutely right about the painted backdrops. And one of the most iconic shots in the film is when she's standing with the father under the tree, and it pulls back, and you see Tara in the distance. That's a painting. And that is just such a beautiful shot. And they recreate that shot at the very end of the film when she goes back to Tara, which I thought was great. The direction in this film, because the film was actually directed by two people. William Wyler and... I'm sorry?
Yep. David Selznick and...
William Wyler. Yeah, William Wyler. With the... No, I take that back. No, Selznick produced it. Victor Fleming and William Wyler directed it.
That's correct.
And so this was definitely a collaborative effort, and it was one of the biggest budgeted films of the time as well. And you can tell. Now, a movie like this obviously would never get made in the year 2019. Well, I take that back. It would get made, but definitely would not be 4 hours long. I can hear that much. And
no, it wouldn't.
And I think if Gone with the Wind was shot today, that it wouldn't have the same reception that it had back in 1939 either. I mean, when adjusted for inflation, it is still the highest grossing movie of all time. Higher grossing than Titanic, Avatar, and The Avengers. It's still the number one grossing film of all time. Because folks would, I remember seeing pictures of like the premiere of people. You can see people standing in line for as far as the eye can see, wanting to see this movie. So, and I get it. It's just breathtaking to watch. I can't really get enough of it. And as a child watching this, because back when I first watched it as a child, we had a black and white television, and it was still beautiful. So when I saw it for the first time in color, it just made it even that much more spectacular. So that takes me back to...
I don't think there'll ever be another movie. It's just a classic. It's just one of those movies that will forever be etched in time.
Now that being said, obviously, once again, in today's society, the way the world is today, especially with racism and obviously with Trump and the reemergence of overt racism in America and things of that nature, and obviously you got alt-right and you got the liberals and you got political correctness. You got a lot of things, a lot of films and music and things of that nature from segregation from those days that are kind of like being ostracized from our consciousness. Like, say for example, a good example is Song of the South from Disney. That film has been taken out of circulation. You can't get it anywhere. There was for a while there was a big uproar about the Dukes of Hazzard being taken off of television. And I think TV Land dropped it. One of those networks dropped it. and obviously there are people calling for Gone with the Wind to get the same treatment. So, what are your thoughts on that whole political correctness thing that's going on today?
I would be a little bit upset because I think that's taking it a little bit too far because it is an iconic movie. I can understand where people are coming from. It's just like when they wanted, like you said, with the Dukes of Hazzard, I can understand where they're coming from with the Dukes of Hazzard, especially with the rebel flag being on top of the General Lee. I get that. But are you going to also take the books off the shelf too and erase history? Because history happened. We can't erase history. It's there. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and once again, that's part of my part of my conflict, because knowing me, okay, and you know me pretty well, but knowing me, okay, if I didn't like Going with the Wind, I'd be like, man, take that shit off. Don't I mean, so I'm biased because I love the film so much, you know. So I get it, folks, you know, because there are a lot of folks like me who look like me who never seen the movie, don't want to see the movie, have no idea what it's about, and don't care. All they know is it's set during the slave days, and that shit don't need to be, you know, available for public consumption.
Exactly.
So,
and I get both sides of it. I do, but the fact that I love the movie so much, and it's part of who I am, and part of, you know, it has such a big to do with how I grew up. You know, because I watched it so much with my grandmother, and it's a part of me. Not so much as how the movie, it's a big part of me growing up and watching it so much with my grandmother. I would be devastated if I couldn't see it anymore.
But isn't that biased though? But aren't you being biased though? Because think about it. Okay, I'm going to assume that you're liberal, right?
Very much so.
Okay, so that being said, you know, take away the memories of you with your grandmother and the fact, you know, if you had never seen Gone with the Wind, okay, would you, knowing you and how you are, if you had never seen it, know anything about it other than what you read, would you want to see the film today?
Probably not. No, absolutely not.
Right. So
not with everything that I've read on it. No.
Right. So you and I are basically in the same boat. We have the same conundrum. I think it's from a different angle, obviously, because you're a white female and I'm a black male.
Right.
But you know, but we're basically in the same boat when it comes to this inner conflict, I guess, because we both love this film. Obviously, we've said that enough. And anyone listening, they know we love the film. Okay, so we love this film, and it takes us back to a time, you know, in our lives where we were truly innocent, you know, and we have this fond memory that we've carried with us into adulthood. And every time I see the film, I know it's going to sound pretty stupid. Every single time I see this film, it feels like the first time. Every time. And I know what's going to happen. Every time I watch it, it feels like the first time.
Yep. And I'm always instantly taken back to when I was a kid.
And right now, I'm in the middle of my binge watching. I watched it last night. I've watched Gone with the Wind in the last 2 weeks probably 6 times. And that's crazy, I know.
Oh, my goodness.
My wife is sick of it.
I was bad.
Yeah, my wife is sick of it because every night, I'll put it on. You know, I fall asleep obviously, but every night I'll put it on and watch it every single night. And like I said, I'll probably do it again tonight. She can't stand it. She won't watch it with me. I don't think she's ever seen it. You know what I mean? So I mean, no one in my world, you know, that I care about has ever watched this film with me. My kids don't want to watch it. No one I've ever dated or anything has ever wanted to watch this film with me. So it's something I have to do in the dark by myself, you know. Now, I think you've heard this story, but I'm gonna tell it again for folks out there who haven't listened to my previous podcast. I'm gonna tell it again. So indulge me, okay?
All right.
All right. A few years ago, there was a re-release. I think it was the 75th anniversary. They re-released Gone with the Wind into movie theaters. Okay, obviously, my favorite film. I always wanted to know what it would feel like to watch it in a movie theater. So, I buy a ticket. It's a Sunday afternoon in Macon, Georgia. You know the old theater over there off of what's the theater? Not Amstar. What is it?
The one that used
Tom
to be
Hill?
here that's now a gym off of Tom Hill Senior.
Yeah, off of Tom Hill. So I go to that theater. I forget what it's called. I think it was Regal. Anyways, it don't really matter. I go to the movie theater. All right, I'm standing outside the theater. Bought my ticket. I'm walking in. I run into this couple, black couple that I know from work. And hey, how you doing? This and the third. What you going to see? They're going to see some movie, whatever. And he asked me what I'm going to see, and I said I'm going to see Gone with the Wind. And the look on their face was priceless. It was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I look at them, I'm like, and you know, so that kind of lets me know, you know, it's gonna be a strange day. So I go to see the film. I go into a movie theater. Obviously, I'm the only black person in there. And it's a sparse crowd. I say maybe 10, 15 people. Not a whole lot of folks in there. Anyways, so obviously this film was 4 hours long. There's an intermission. And if folks don't know how movies were back in the day, they would have an intermission where they would change the reels. You have a chance to stretch your legs, all that kind of stuff. Get something to eat or whatever. Anyway, so I watched the first half of the movie. Everything's great. Now, another thing that kind of shocked me is that the aspect of the film, it doesn't take up the whole screen. You know, I was expecting it to be, you know, take the whole movie screen. No, it was just, you know, it was a very small, you know, block right in the middle of the screen. So it was kind of like watching TV. So, anyways, so because obviously, you know, it wasn't back then. Movie theater, the movie screen was short, was smaller. Don't matter. Anyways, it's intermission. I'm sitting there enjoying myself, and I get a tap on my shoulder. I turn and look, and there's these 3 white women. Well, 2 white girls and an older woman.
They asked you to go get them some popcorn, didn't they?
Yeah. She taps me on the shoulder. I look at her, and she says, "Go get me some popcorn." She says, "Sir, would you?" Anything. She said, "Go get me some popcorn." I am quoting her verbatim. "Go get me some popcorn." And I looked at her. I was like, "You must have fallen into a goddamn time warp. It is not 1939. Fuck you. I ain't getting you shit." and
Good for you. What did she say then?
I'm sorry.
What did she say then?
She said she would. You see, I turned around, right, and obviously she had this shocked look on her face, right, and then because this was a young girl, she might have been maybe 14, 15 years old. I don't know what she was. Anyways, so the mother, I'm assuming it was the mother or the adult of the 3, taps me on the shoulder and she apologizes. And I said, "Don't worry about it. It's okay, but you need to recognize this is it's not 1939. Okay, you don't went into a quantum leap. It don't work. I mean, that's like leave me alone." So and that really took away from the splendor of me watching the film. So really, that second half of the film, I was kind of disappointed, and it just took away from this whole. It kind of ruined my day. But that actually happened. So
That is horrible.
I know exactly. Now, could you imagine if that happened to me in 2019 with all this stuff that's going on in the world? I probably
You should have recorded her ass and had her kicked out of the damn theater. If I'd have been there, I would have. After I'd whipped her ass.
Exactly. So that being said, and now let's once again talk about obviously the way the world is today versus what's depicted in the film. Now, if you were to, I guess, what am I trying to say? If you were to explain this film to someone who hadn't seen it before in today's society, okay, how would you present to get them to watch it? How would you present that film to them?
That's a good question. Not quite sure how I would answer that, honestly.
It's tough,
Because
isn't it? Yeah.
with everybody, with today's society, so many people are so touchy about so many things, and and for good reason. I mean, this world is not how I envisioned raising my kids, honestly. But I don't know how I would sell the movie to get people to watch it. Honestly, I really don't. I guess I would touch on the good points and touch on the love story and not focus so much on the Civil War and the slavery parts, because honestly, the movie's not really about slavery. It's about love and growing up and struggling and overcoming hardships, and it's a poignant love story. I mean, that's how I would sell the movie.
And I think that's probably the only way you really can because that is what it is. It's a love story set against the backdrop of the Civil War, just like Titanic is a love
Right.
story set against the backdrop of the sinking of the Titanic. You know?
Right.
So you got these two lovers, in a real world situation. Obviously, it's fictional characters placed into a real world situation. So I'm waiting for the day. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm waiting for the day.
The Titanic, like you said, a love story. The two lovers from opposite ends of the spectrum. One from a very wealthy family. One from who is not.
Yeah. Absolutely. And right now, I'm waiting for the day that they make a love story set against the backdrop of 9/11. It's coming. Eventually they're going to do it. And I think that's kind of...
I can't believe they haven't done it already.
Exactly. Same thing with the Pearl Harbor movie with Ben Affleck and what's his name? What's her name?
Kate Beckinsale. And the guy that looks like a young... oh my gosh.
Josh Hartnett.
Josh Hartnett. He looks like a young, what's the guy that played, oh my gosh, he played in Coal Miner's Daughter.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes, he looks like a young Tommy Lee Jones to me, Josh Hartnett does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I never thought about that. But yeah, now you say it, yeah, he does. He does. But yeah, Pearl Harbor was set against, a love story set against the Pearl Harbor attack,
Yep, that was a great movie.
Yeah, it was. I liked it a lot. So that's what I think that's the way you have to present it. You can't, it's because it's not about the times, it's about the story that takes place during those times. And I think that's the way that you would have to present that film to a layperson to get them even interested in seeing the film. Now let's go back and talk about the movie a little bit more before we wrap up. Okay. Now obviously this movie is 4 hours long, and I know you love it, and I love it. Now, what's the most frustrating part of this film to you?
The most frustrating part is how she takes forever to realize that Red is her one true love and how much that he actually loves her. And it's so frustrating to me when she miscarries the baby and she's calling out for Red, but nobody hears her. And when Mamie says, "Are you calling for somebody?" And she's like, "Oh, it's no use." And they spend all this time being freaking stubborn and not admitting to each other that they love each other, and all they want to do is be stubborn. And then by the time they realize that it's too late, it just makes me want to bang my head against the wall. It's like, like neither one of them want to give an inch of leeway to the other. They're too busy trying to be, prove the other one wrong, that they don't want to just give up a little bit and say, okay, well, I love you, or admit that they're wrong. That's the most frustrating part to me.
Yeah, I mean, if one character just listens long enough for the other character to say the thing that they said, none of this happens. I mean, and the problem is solved because Red loves her, she loves Red, but they keep missing each other. They keep miscommunicating throughout the latter part of the film. And the part that frustrates me is at the very end when Melanie dies, and obviously she what she says to Scarlett before she dies, about Red, he loves you so, and it kind of dawns on her. Then obviously she goes out there, and Red is still there, and she sees Ashley. She goes to Ashley instead of going to Red, and then she realizes that she never really loved Ashley and that she loves Red. She turns around, Red's gone. If Red had stayed there like 15 seconds more, he would have seen that, and who knows how things would have changed. But even that notwithstanding, she goes back to the house and she tells Red, "I love you. I don't want a divorce. I don't want to leave you. I love you. I know it's you that I love now, but now it's too late." And Red's like, he's being stubborn. He's being stubborn. And of course, we got one of the most iconic lines in the history of film when, Red, if you leave.
Frankly, my dear.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn.
Exactly. And walks off into the fog, never to be seen again. Perfect ending.
And then you got her line.
Yeah.
"Oh, well, tomorrow is another day."
Yeah. I won't think about that now. I'll think about it tomorrow. Because she says that several times during the movie. That's kind of like her little catch line.
Yep.
You know, she always puts things off or whatever.
Or fiddly-dee.
Yeah, fiddly dee. And obviously, the movie ends where she goes back to Tara, and that iconic shot once again where she's standing under the tree, and it pulls back, and you see Tara in the distance. That same shot that we talked about earlier with her and her father. And it's once again, it's a perfect ending to a damn near perfect film. And like I said, the only part that I didn't like, obviously, is in the third act, the miscommunication between the two. But I guess you got to have that, that soap opera conflict or whatever, kind of keep things going. But I'm sure there were a lot of frustrated people back in 1939 when this movie came out. Like, damn.
Yep, I'm sure.
But Rhett loved her and she loved him. But it feels good to imagine what happened afterwards. That's another reason why I didn't want to see Scarlet, the sequel. I like wondering what happened. Did she go back and get him? Did she find him? Did she go to Charleston? Did he come back to her? I mean, because at the end of the day, she's Scarlett O'Hara. She was smoking hot. So.
Well, I read the books and I watched part of the sequel, but according to the books, she went to Charleston to chase him. She stayed with his mother, and he played her little game for a little bit to keep up the personal appearances. But he wound up divorcing her and married another woman. She got the other woman pregnant, but she died with yellow fever, and the baby died with her.
Damn.
She went off to Ireland to discover her roots, where her dad's family's from. She met her grandmother and her cousins and all that. And she was pregnant with Rhett's baby when she left Charleston, but she didn't tell him that. She was wanting to play the card when the card was just right. And she had the baby in Ireland, and the baby, she named it Catherine. She called her Cat. And Rhett didn't find out about her until she was like 3 or 4, and then they wound up getting married and getting back together.
Really?
Perfect, right?
Yeah, I know. Okay, I'll stick with the original ending.
Yeah.
All right, so there you have it. Gone with the Wind, a discussion. And I feel a little bit better about it now because I've talked to you about it. And it's still going to be my favorite film of all time. I'm still going to be black, and I'm still going to love it. And if that is a source of consternation for anyone out there, deal with it. So, you got any closing thoughts for me?
No, I'm glad you let me be a part of it, though, and I'm glad I got to express my opinions and my views, and I feel honored that you let me be a part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's make sure we do it again sometime. So if you're listening out there, what do you think about Gone with the Wind? What do you think about our discussion? Do you agree? Did we nail anything, or were we off base? Comment below and let me know. Make sure you subscribe. I do appreciate all the comments. I appreciate the subscription, so keep it up and let us know what you think. Let me know what you think, because once again, you just heard what Lonzo thinks. Bye.